David had an older brother named Wyatt. When Lila and David decided to tie the knot, Wyatt proposed the idea of having a small intimate wedding, just the four of them. Lila, David, Wyatt, and his wife-to-be. Lila didn't have any elaborate plans for the ceremony, so she thought it sounded perfect. But this plan never came to be because Wyatt's fiancée left him, accusing him of infidelity. Lila was stunned. She couldn't wrap her head around it. Wyatt, who always seemed so proper, turned out to be a traitor. She was furious and refused to talk to him. For David, his wife's reaction was a clear sign. If she condemned him, it meant she would never do something like that herself. It gave him confidence in their relationship, which was already solid. 5 years had passed since then, and Lila had softened. She no longer avoided her brother-in-law, nor did she bring up the past when they crossed paths. David was relieved to see two important people in his life finding common ground again. On Saturdays, Lila worked until noon. One Saturday, when she came home, she found David cleaning. "Honey, I was tidying up and found a sock behind the couch, but it doesn't have a match. I can't find the pair anywhere in my drawer," David said. Lila gave him a reproachful look and replied, "Maybe I threw it out already. I told you not to scatter them around." They both laughed, tossed the sock in the trash, and forgot about it. Lila was relieved that David hadn't remembered he'd never owned such socks and promised herself to be more careful next time. David had been under a lot of stress at work lately. He'd had 2 business trips that stretched longer than expected, and he ended up spending 3 weeks in a foreign city instead of just 1. In the evenings, he and Lila would have their usual phone calls, sharing the day's events. Lila would tell him about quirky customer encounters at the store and how they sometimes laughed about them in the back room. These little stories were a source of comfort for David, making him eager to come home. One Friday, when he finally returned, the couple decided to invite Wyatt over for a visit. They spent the evening enjoying 2 bottles of wine and lots of laughs. David was happy to be home with his loved ones, especially after being worn out by endless political debates. Lila stepped out onto the balcony for a cigarette, and a few minutes later, Wyatt joined her. "I saw you in the city center yesterday," Wyatt remarked. "Why didn't you come say hi?" Lila smiled. "Oh, I didn't see you there. My bad." Wyatt smirked. "So you weren't alone then?" The smile quickly faded from Lila's face as fear set in. Her hands trembled. "What? Lila, is it always the loudest voice at a funeral that's the killer? Is that why you hated me so much, trying to shift the blame from yourself?" Wyatt said, grinning slightly. Lila started pleading with him not to reveal anything. She didn't want David to find out about the affair, fearing it could ruin their marriage. She begged Wyatt, insisting it was a one-time mistake, and promised it wouldn't happen again. Wyatt nodded, continuing to smoke and listen. Then he suddenly said he believed her and wouldn't tell anyone. But there was one catch. "I've had feelings for you for a while now. Will you sleep with me too?" he asked. Lila was taken aback but felt cornered. Seeing no other way out, with reluctance, she agreed to Wyatt's condition. From that point on, she cut off all communication with her lover. Wyatt didn't specify when David would have to pay for her mistake, leaving her in a constant state of dread. Little did she know Wyatt had a much bigger plan in mind. For the last 2 weeks, David had been swamped at work. A critical project demanded his full attention, so he practically lived at the office. Many spouses would have been upset by the arrangement, but Lila understood he was doing it for their future. She wasn't one to stir up drama. Wednesday, her day off, came, and in the afternoon she received a call from Wyatt. He reminded her of their arrangement and mentioned he'd be coming by later to gather his courage. Feeling uneasy, Lila decided to have a couple of drinks to calm her nerves before meeting him. She found herself questioning whether she was making the right choice. Shouldn't she be the one to tell him? David would tear off the Band-Aid quickly, but it would hurt like hell. Wyatt was still nowhere to be seen, and the bottle of wine was nearly empty. As the clock ticked toward 5 in the evening, the doorbell finally rang. There he was, Wyatt, grinning on the other side. "Looks like you're all set," he chuckled. Noticing Lila's slightly tipsy state, she shot him a glare and let him in, noting that he'd brought more wine with him. Lila didn't turn down another glass, and soon enough, they were both drinking. As Wyatt made his move, Lila, now quite drunk, started to see her brother-in-law in a new light. He seemed handsome, charming, too charming. David wrapped up his work just in time. The project was almost done, and only a few employees remained at the office. Satisfied with the progress, he headed home, eager for a peaceful evening with his wife. But when he walked in, an unpleasant surprise awaited him. The apartment, dimly lit, glowed warmly. David chuckled, thinking of how he always teased Lila about her habit of leaving every light on when she was alone. But this time, his usual joke didn't come to his lips. Instead, a shocking scene hit him full force. Sitting in his favorite chair, the one he usually relaxed in after a long day, was Wyatt, and kneeling before him, naked, was Lila. "Hey, brother," Wyatt greeted with a smirk. David's anger flared instantly. His words choked in his throat as he lunged toward Wyatt, pushing him off his wife. A fierce struggle broke out between the two men. Lila tried to intervene but was shoved aside once again by David. "I saved you," Wyatt yelled, his voice filled with venom. "Saved me from what?" David shot back. "From your wife. She cheated on you, slept with another man, and then judged me for doing the same," Wyatt spat out. David sank to the floor next to the couch, his eyes locked on Lila, who sat against the wall, her arms wrapped tightly around her body. "Is it true?" he asked quietly, the weight of the question pressing on him. Lila nodded in silence, not meeting his eyes. The room fell into a heavy silence. David buried his face in his hands, overwhelmed by the weight of it all. After what seemed like an eternity, David broke the silence by turning to Wyatt. "Why didn't you just tell me about this? Why sleep with her yourself?" Wyatt's explanation made no sense to David. He claimed he wanted to show his brother the truth firsthand, certain that simply telling him would have resulted in disbelief and dismissal. David, now seething, was shoved out of the room by Wyatt, who cursed at him, threatening dire consequences if their paths crossed again. Back in the living room, David sat amidst his scattered belongings, tears blurring his vision. He made it clear to Lila that he couldn't forgive her betrayal, not just with another man, but with his own brother. He couldn't comprehend why she'd made that twisted pact with Wyatt. Hoping somehow to salvage their marriage, Lila agreed to leave once she found somewhere to go, and so it was decided. But months passed, and Lila still hadn't found a new place. David started to suspect that she was dragging her feet, hoping he'd eventually forgive her. But he was resolute, determined to move on. He found her an apartment, paid the first month's rent, and didn't regret a penny. His peace of mind was worth far more than any money spent. When Lila finally left, David exhaled a quiet sigh. He had accepted his life as a single man. Over the following years, Lila struggled to find a man worth her time. She tried relationships with several men, but they all ended in failure. She almost married one, but a month before the wedding, he ran off with a younger woman, leaving Lila with nothing but an apology sent over the internet. Lila was alone again. Her worst nightmare had become reality. Betrayal. So guys, if you all liked today's story, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon. Thank you for watching.